Have you ever stopped to think about what's actually happening right at this very moment to bring this to your screen? There's this invisible language that powers pretty much the entire internet. It's called HTTP, and today we're going to decode it, using its original rulebook, a document called RFC 2616, as our guide. I mean, just think about it for a second. Every single time you click on something or type in a web address and hit enter, something incredible is set in motion. You're kicking off this hidden, super fast conversation between your browser and a computer somewhere, maybe thousands of miles away. And for the next few minutes, we're going to eavesdrop on that conversation. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with a secret handshake, who's talking and what language they're using. Then we'll listen in as the client makes a request and as the server gives its response. After that, we'll see how the conversation got way smarter and faster. And finally, we'll wrap up with why these rules are the bedrock of the entire web. Sound good? Let's get into it.
First things first, the web's secret handshake. You can't have a conversation unless you know who's talking to whom and that they're speaking the same language.
And that shared language is HTTP. Now, I know that official definition on the screen sounds super academic and complicated, but don't let it fool you. All it really means is that HTTP is the agreed-upon set of rules, the grammar, the vocabulary that lets every computer on the web understand each other. It's their common tongue.
And in this conversation, you've got two main participants. Over on one side, there's the client. And for most of us, that's just our web browser, Chrome, Safari, whatever you're using. Its job is simple, to ask for stuff. And on the other side, you have the server. That's the powerful computer where the website actually lives. Its job is to listen for those requests and send back answers. Simple, right? The asker and the answerer.
All right, so let's dig into the first half of this exchange. This is where your browser, the client, speaks up and tells the server exactly what it wants.
This is what we call an HTTP request. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like you're ordering food. You can't just walk into a restaurant and shout food. You've got to be specific, right? You tell them what dish you want, if you have any special instructions. It's the same idea here. Now, the most crucial part of that order is the very first line, called the request line. It's got three key pieces of information. First up is the method, which is the action verb. What do you want to do? Second is the request URI, which is just a technical way of saying the exact address of what you want. And third, the HTTP version, which is like saying, hey, just confirming we're both speaking the 1.1 dialect of HTTP. Cool? And these methods are really the action words of the web. The one you use 99% of the time is get. That's your browser saying, please get me this stuff at this address so I can show it to the user. But there are others, like post, which is what you use when you submit a form, or delete, which is pretty self-explanatory. Each method tells the server exactly what your intention is. Okay, so the client has clearly stated its order. Now it's the server's turn to talk. Let's see what the response sounds like. This reply is called an HTTP response. And surprise, surprise, just like the request, that very first line is the most important part. It's called the status line, and it's basically the server's instant summary of how your request went. It's the, okay, here's the deal line. And it gives that summary with a 3-digit code. The cool thing is, you really only need to look at the very first digit to get the whole story. If it starts with a 2, like 200 something, everything is great. It was a success. If it starts with a 4, the client, that's you, made a mistake. And if it starts with a 5, it means the server itself messed something up. It's a super quick way to diagnose what happened. And this brings us to the two most famous status codes of all time. 200 OK is what we always want to see. It means, yep, got your request, found what you wanted, here you go. But then there's its infamous cousin, the 404 not found. We've all been there. And what it's really saying is, hey, I looked, but the thing you asked for isn't here. The key is it's a client error. You asked for a page that doesn't exist. So that's the basic back and forth, request, response. But a modern web page is way more than just one file. It's text, dozens of images, style files, scripts. It's a whole package. And this is where HTTP version 1.1 came in and made this conversation a whole lot smarter. See, back in the old days, if a website needed to load, say, 10 images, your browser had to make 10 totally separate connections to the server. It was like making 10 separate phone calls just to ask for 10 different things. As you can imagine, it was incredibly slow, inefficient, and just clogged up the whole system. So HTTP/1.1 introduced a real game changer called persistent connections. And the idea behind it is just beautifully simple.
Instead of making a new phone call for every single item, why not just make one call and keep the line open until you've gotten everything you need? And this really shows you the difference. The old way was like having your conversation where you hang up the phone after every single sentence. Just madness. The new way, the HTTP/1.1 way, is like keeping that line open for the entire conversation. It is so much faster, way more efficient, and it's one of the core things that makes the web today feel as fast as it does. Okay, so let's zoom out for the big picture. We've been talking about all these little details, but why does having this big, formal document defining all these rules actually matter so much? Well, it's because this rulebook is the guarantee. It's what ensures that any browser made by anyone running on any device anywhere on Earth can talk successfully to any web server. It creates this universal language that makes a truly global web possible. And it also lays out the rules for other smart things like caching, which is what lets your browser save copies of things to make websites load even faster the next time you visit. When you read that quote from the original document, you can really feel the ambition. The people who wrote this weren't just thinking about sending plain text back and forth. They used big words like distributed, collaborative, hypermedia. They were building the foundation for the rich, interactive, media-filled web that we all use and love today. So there you have it. That's the secret conversation. It's a simple dance of request and response, made smarter and faster by the rules of HTTP/1.1. And of course, the conversation has kept evolving with newer versions like HTTP/2 and HTTP/3, making it even more efficient. But now that you know the basic language, it makes you wonder, what will the web's next conversation sound like?